One of the things you know that I keep on following on this channel is, of course, the writers and actors strike that's going on in America. And I've said it every time we've covered it. It is, I think, the key important moments in our history when it comes to workers' strikes and a pushback against AI from, well, taking jobs. Because this is what the actors and the writers are really striking about. The fact that in some bit part actors could get scanned by a scanner, and then the studio would own your likeness forever, and you wouldn't even get paid for any of the multitude times that they use your likeness. Writers are constantly worried about AI and what that might do to their career. And AI is, it's shaky at the moment, but the technology around it is only going to get better. Will it become creative enough to replace a writer? I doubt it. But if a studio is willing to say, let's say, get an AI to write 60% of the script and then bring in a scab writer to sort of, you know, buff out the rough edges on the script, then they will. They absolutely will. And this is why I've said at the moment it's a big point of solidarity at the moment. So if you do want to help support the writers and the actors over in America, which again I think is really important, they do have a strike fund. If you go to the SAG site or the SAG-AFTRA strike, they do have a strike fund which helps people. So I would contribute to that. Don't yet delete your Netflix or whatever streaming service site you have, because they haven't yet called for a boycott. So save that for when they do call for a boycott. But until then, as I've said, I'm going to keep an eye on what goes on in America, because there's been some insane stuff coming out from over there. And this is what gets me about this, because if I was the boss of Netflix, there is a massive opportunity, because if you're Netflix, we are in still the midst of a massive streaming war, and it is a massive stalemate. And ultimately, a lot of the growth has been generated by India. Now, unfortunately, Amazon got there first with Prime Video. So Netflix has really struggled to break into the Indian market. But everywhere else, Netflix does have quite a good market share. And if you're the CEO of Netflix and you want to get people to come over to Netflix, well, what do you need to get people over to watching Netflix? You need the content. Right now, you have thousands of really good actors, really good writers out there striking for better pay. If you're the CEO of Netflix, you have to pay them of your annual profit 1%. That's all it is. That's how little they're really asking. Now, yeah, it's billions of dollars, but it's 1%. If I was the CEO of Netflix, here's 5% writers and actors. Take it. Have better residuals, have better pay. Take it. There you go, guys. All of a sudden, you as Netflix have all the writers, all the actors wanting to come and work in your products. You are going to get the best content you have. Then, of course, like I say, I'm not the boss of Netflix, so fortunately, I can't do that. And of course, there's the Motion Picture Association of America, which would be very upset if Netflix went out and did that. So, but hey, if I was the boss of Netflix, that's what I'd do. That's what I do, because I know if you're going to win this streaming war, you need the best content. And heck, 4-5% to get that content, hell, it's worth it, because your profits would only increase. But hey, there you go. Like I say, not the boss of Netflix. However, bringing us once again back across the pond to talk about what is going on here in the UK. Because there is currently in Parliament, in its last parliamentary stages, an anti-strike bill. Now, this is going to cause huge problems for unions over here, and it's going to cause a lot of problems. So it is really important that this is something else we keep an eye on, because if this goes through, oh boy, what you're seeing going on in America, um, writers and actors in the UK could never do, and we'll get into why in a moment. But before we do go covering this anti-strike bill and why it's awful and so bad, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page and an aftertation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And of course, as always, there is the YouTube thank you button, and of course the Pony Club as well. So, oh, and of course, do remember to click the like and share button. So, what is this anti-strike bill? Well, the current anti-strike bill that is going through at Parliament at the moment really enforces what they call minimum service requirements. And why is this going through at the moment? Well, partly it's because you may remember last year we had strike after strike after strike by the NHS, and they are still striking. And this is causing the government massive problem because it doesn't want to pay them. Instead, it argues that the pay review boards are the problem. But the thing is, when it goes to the pay review board is saying, well, no, actually pay them. Here, we've said, you need to increase their pay. So the government is running from this. It really doesn't want to do this. It can do, and as we've said before, it is a choice by the government not to pay doctors, workers, civil servants, you name it, not to increase their pay. And it's not just people in the public sector that are going on strike. It's people in the private sector as well in the UK that are also going on strike. And imagine this minimum service requirement, because this is what is deadly, because it basically says you have to have people still working even while there's a strike going on. You have to maintain minimum service requirements, and that gets decided not by the unions but by the work, by the company, by the organization that is being, well, striked upon. So they get to decide, well, minimum service requirements, well, actually we need 90% of our staff. So imagine that for a second, that a company could go out and demand, we want 90% of our staff to be able to work that day. And it gets even worse, because this also in the bill strips away someone who might ignore, if you have this minimum service requirement and your company says, well, you have to work today, even though you said, no, I don't want to because I'm going on strike, they can legally fire you. So they can legally fire you for going on strike if they have these minimum service requirements and they issue you a work notice to work on a strike day. This goes against every single law that we know and will undermine workers' rights. It will undermine everyone's right to strike here in the UK. Even the UN's Labour body has written to the UK and said, hey, this law that you've got going through, kind of very, very much anti-Labour at this moment in time. Can you not do it? But of course, this is still being worked on. It's in its last stages. We'll see what happens when they try to pass this. Last time this was passed through, the Lords battered it back into the into the Commons, because, well, as we've said before, the Lords are not going to pass anything that breaks international law. And once again, this, well, seems to break international law. And if it did pass, well, you'd have not only the High Court looking at a case on this, you'd have the European Court of Human Rights looking at this. You'd even have the UN looking at this. So the UK would be in an absolute whirlwind of legal troubles if it decided to do this, and would get absolutely struck down by either our High Court, the European Court of Human Rights when they would cover this, or even the UN when it came to this. So this is something, once again, in our country here, we have to keep an eye on, because if something like this passes, there will be nothing stopping a company like Amazon, for example, saying, well, actually, our minimum service requirement is about 80% of our workforce. So essentially 80% of your workforce on a strike day would still have to work, which pretty much would destroy any power that a strike would have against an organization. So this would destroy unions here in the UK very, very much so. It would damage them. And one of the things we always want to point out that you want strong unions because it is unions that protect workers, that have increased pay, that have increased benefits for workers. Time and time again, we have seen that example work out again and again and again. You want a perfect example? Look at the continent where unions are a lot stronger than they are in UK unions, and yet European workers better protected, better pay, better rights. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, please do remember to click on that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, as always, down below, there are links to my Patreon page, my one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can all buy me coffee. And of course, the YouTube donation link as well, called YouTube Thank You button. And of course, the Pony Club as well. And of course, don't forget to click on the like and share button, because like I say, I think this is a really important issue that we need to get more attention on, especially as it is in its last parliamentary stages. So we need to prepare certainly to write to your MPs to tell them to vote against this, even if they are Conservative MPs, because I said write to them regardless, even if they are Conservatives. So bear in mind that is, you need to tee those up. And of course, there will be undoubtedly at some point a petition. And of course, as always, thank you very much, as always, for watching, and we will see you all next time.